Hi everybody, Jessie here from jessiebanks.com and welcome back to another color focus video. I've been really enjoying doing these. So this is the third one in the series and today we are going to focus on Daniel Smith's Sap Green. Oh, it's not focusing. We are, but apparently the camera's not. What in the world? There we go. So this is Daniel Smith's Sap Green. Again, our watercolor swatch is done from these Waffle Flowers swatch sheet. So this is all of the information here and then the die that I used to cut it out on the back. I will have a link to these in the description box below, as well as the watercolor we're focusing on. So this is Daniel Smith's Sap Green. It is made from PO48 and PY150, which is the new combination for quinacridone gold. I do have the old one. I'll show you guys that in a little while, but just for a comparison. But yeah, so this is the one you can currently get because you can't get PO49 anymore. That pigment is completely gone. NPG7. So Daniel Smith's, what it says on the website about the color is, Daniel Smith's Sap Green is wonderful, the hue we love and the permanency we need. This non-fugitive formulation creates deep forest shadow green mixed with French ultramarine and mossy golden greens and green browns when mixed with burnt sienna or quinacridone sienna or burnt orange. Sap Green mixes well with most pigments and leaves a stained residue when lifted. In the French ultramarine or quinacridone mixtures, as mentioned above, it says squeegee or knife areas to reveal the sap green stain and to create blades of springy grass with deeper mossy passages. I love this color. I use this color all the time. Actually, on my palette here, I didn't put it in initially and I've actually squeezed it into the corner here because I use it so much that mixing it by itself, because you can mix it out of these two colors. So this is phthalo green blue shade and this is my quinacridone gold. You can mix it yourself, but I use it so much that I decided to squeeze it out onto my palette so I have it all the time. So we're going to start off by filling out our little swatch sheet here and then we can fill out the rest of the information again once this dries and we do the lifting test. So our mass tone, which is basically the highest pigment load, the most pure color without it being faded out with a ton of water. Again, you have to add some water to it because it is watercolor. You don't just want to scrape it out of the tube and onto there. So we start with our mass tone up at the top, which will give you the full strength color. And then on our next one here, we are going to, I just need a bit more water. I have my little dollop of paint off to the side. That's what I'm doing here. We'll start over in this end and just pull it out just past halfway here. I want the mass tone so that we can check our lifting ability in that section there. So once we get past where we're going to lift, I will rinse out my brush and we will fade this out so you can see it as the color lightens and isn't quite as saturated. So there is that, and we will come back to that in a little bit here. So we're going to start with some of the mixes and things. If I have those colors that they talked about that I read out to you from the Daniel Smith site, we will play with some of those. This is just Canson XL watercolor paper. Whoops, I had some on my finger apparently. So it's not cotton watercolor paper like what I do my swatches on, because I want to see them on cotton paper because that's what I paint with for the most part. But this will work lovely for what we are going to focus on now. So French ultramarine, which is exactly what I have on my palette, we will pull some of that up. And I'm just going to get it started here. Okay, there's a puddle of the blue. Let me pull that in so you guys can see that. Otherwise it looks silly when you see my arm moving and you can't tell what I'm doing. Then we'll just pull in a little bit of the sap green to start. And you can see how deep that gets. Like, look at that. This is beautiful. Right. And if we add a little more of our sap green here, I stuck my brush too far into that fresh paint, but more sap green. That was almost all sap green. Add a little more blue to that. You can get all sorts of different green tones. I love that. Look at that forest green. right? And it granulates out. It's absolutely beautiful. This is a very granulating color, which I really, really enjoy. So I have quinacridone sienna. Is that what that is? Yeah, quinacridone sienna. So it talked about that one being mixed with the color. So let's get that going. It says quinacridone sienna. It'll make mossy golden greens and green browns. So put a bunch of this sienna out on our palette, or on my palette here. This is just a butcher tray. I picked it up at my local art store. I really like having them. We'll start with just a little bit of the green in there, which will make it more of a brown tone. And this will go even more brown the more green I add, until it gets to the point that it goes the other direction and is more green than orange. Aren't those pretty? Like, those are such earthy colors. They're great when you're painting like scenery or backgrounds if you're using it in cards like I tend to. Those colors are lovely. If I take my Sap Green and mix it with a little bit of Carbazole Violet, I should be able to get a very good neutral here. Look at that. That's beautiful gray. That's one thing I really like to learn with my watercolors, is what's going to make a neutral color. Simply because a lot of the time when I paint with these, I want to use a limited palette. So I want to pick out like the colors I'm going to use. And for my neutrals and things, that's just with more green and with that Carbazole. I want to use those colors to make all of my shadows and other things. I don't always want to pull in a bunch of different colors. I just kind of want to keep everything very fluid. So like if I'm painting flowers and things, say with purples and greens for, like, and I'm using Sap Green for my leaves and stuff, which is a tendency I do. I use Sap Green all the time in my leaves and everything on my floral cards. I want to be able to mix neutrals out of those. So I want to be able to take those purples and make neutrals. Like, look at that one. That's almost black, you guys. That is gorgeous. I guess it's a little more on the brown side than that one. It's a warmer version. But this is using quinacridone purple. So I like to be able to take my colors and use them for everything so that I don't have to pull in a black all the time. Don't get me wrong, like, I really do enjoy lunar black. I think it's a beautiful color. But if I've already got a granulating color, like the Sap Green on my palette that I'm currently using, I don't necessarily want to... Oh, I didn't add enough green to that. I don't necessarily want to pull in the lunar black when I can already get that effect using my Sap Green, right? And it's all personal preference. I just think that it's really nice to be able to use those certain colors you have. And that's going a lot more purple there, but it's dumbing down the hue of just our quinacridone purple. Here, I'll put that beside it here so you can see what that color looks like on its own. But I really like being able to mix these colors and do different things with them. I always like to see... My favorite color on my palette is quinacridone coral. It's probably my most used watercolor, period. And I always like to see what it does with the colors. Even if I know it's going to come out ugly. Sometimes those ugly colors have a very good place. Like this color, I would classify as an ugly color, but I'd use it in leaves and things for sure. I know I'm kind of babbling, but I'm just thinking out loud as I'm mixing these and what I'd use them for. So now I took that quinacridone coral and I mixed a tiny little bit of the Sap Green with it. And we get that pretty little, it's like a rusty color. And if I add a little more Sap Green, it gets even more brown. Neutralizes it a little more to brown as opposed to gray. So those are things I really like to know and enjoy with my paints. So that's what we'll do for mixing. Just let me move this off to the side here. I'll be right back once this all dries. Okay, well, all of those swatches finished drying. Let's go back and finish up this little card here. I'm going to pull out my trusty little scrubbing brush that I like to use, and I'm going to take some water on it, and we're going to test its lifting. I know it said in the little thing we read that it is a staining color, so this should definitely not come all the way back to white. but I should be able to lift some of it off in order to see that hue. I don't want to work too hard at this because I don't want to cause my paper to pill. I just want to see what I can get up. So that's what I consider lifted. That's probably as far as I'm going to be able to make it move. So now we can fill out the rest of this. So it is definitely a granulating color. You can see all of that texture in there compared to what we did with our quinacridone coral as our first one. You can see how flat this one is and how this one has that texture. Just hang on, my son is running around. Okay, so as I was saying, you can tell how this one's very smooth and this one has the texture and some granulation. So it is a granulating color. So I will color in that little triangle. My child is putting 100 miles on upstairs, you guys. Can you hear the floor squeaking? It is a semi-transparent color. It does leave some sediment on there. I don't normally draw the second black line beside it simply because I can tell by looking at it myself. But if you have an issue being able to tell, if you take that same marker that you have and just draw another line beside it, you will be able to tell if it, oh sorry, that's semi-staining. It is fully transparent. Pardon me. When you have a color that isn't fully transparent, you will be able to tell because it will leave sediment on that black line, or it will, and if you can't tell by that, you can draw the second line beside it with the same marker so you can see the difference over top and with it underneath. But this is a transparent color. Sorry, I was having a moment. Anyway, it is completely light fast. So what I have done here is, I haven't done the lifting on this one. This is the original version of Daniel Smith's Sap Green. So this one, you can no longer get because it was made with the original quinacridone coral, the P049. I got lucky in a haul I did a while ago where I picked up a ton of watercolors from an artist who was moving over to acrylics, and I paid like $300 for probably a couple $1,000s worth of paint all said and done. So that is why I lucked out and got the original one. But so this one definitely stains more than the new one does. I did swatch them side by side here. So this is the old one and this is the new one. There is a slight variation. I find this one is a little more luminous and bright. I can almost see more yellow in it. And this one is a little more green and a little dulled out. But Daniel Smith did a fantastic job of matching these two colors. And they are both absolutely beautiful. So definitely, I mean, just because you can't get the original, this one's fantastic and does everything you need it to do. I'm going to pull in our swatches here so you can see these all dried up. So you can see how when you just add that little bit of blue to it, you can see the green peeking through because these are both granulating colors. I absolutely love all of these very neutral, very earthy mixes you can get for florals and grounds and different sorts of scenes and stuff like that. So that is our look here at Daniel Smith's Sap Green. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next Tuesday with another one. Bye for now.